For 40 years, a fisherman named Eli relied on the predictable rhythm of the Sea of Galilee. It was a vast, calming presence that formed the baseline of his entirely routine life. He knew the cold nights, the shifting currents, and the toll of broken nets. Over 4 decades, Eli had developed a very specific worldview. He assumed that if you acquire enough skill and master your environment, you can fully control your fate. Then the weather broke. Without warning, the bright, clear sky was swallowed by black clouds, and the wind violently threw the sea against the shore. Eli had navigated countless rough touches, but the waves rising around his small wooden boat were towering higher than anything he had witnessed in his entire life on the water. The sea poured over the sides. A heavy swell slammed into the mast, violently shaking the entire hull. Samuel, Eli's lung helper, gripped the rail in a panic and yelled that they needed to turn back. But they were entirely cut off from the shoreline. For the first time in his adult life, Eli had no command to give. He closed his eyes, realizing his vast reservoir of maritime knowledge was entirely useless to save them. Beyond the wind and waves, the storm reveals a more unsettling reality. Human capacity for control has a hard, absolute limit. The boat groaned under the immense weight of the sea, actively taking on water. They were physically exhausted and seconds away from sinking. Up until that exact moment, Eli believed that being strong meant you simply did not feel fear. But standing waist deep in the rising water, the reality became clear. Courage is the decision to take hold of faith and move forward, while the fear is still right there in the boat with you. That internal shift broke his freeze. Eli opened his eyes, looked directly at Samuel, and told him to hold on. They were going to fight back. Courage does not act as a shield to block out terror. It operates as an active, conscious choice made from the dead center of a disaster. They grabbed the heavy, waterlogged ropes. With shaking hands, they bailed and patched the torn sail, working against the sheer force of the gale. Faith functions as an engine for endurance, keeping their arms moving long after their bodies have signaled for surrender. Hours dragged by. Slowly, the wind began to drop. The heavy cloud cover broke apart, letting a thin line of morning sunlight stretch across a quieting sea. Exhausted, Samuel looked across the deck and smiled. He assumed they had beaten the storm through their own sheer grit. Eli saw the wreckage differently. To him, the ordeal had stripped away the illusion of self-reliance, exposing exactly how fragile they were. Enduring a catastrophe doesn't prove our own invincibility. It reveals that the strength required to survive must come from a source much larger than ourselves. That evening, safely back on land, Eli sat alone by the water as the village quietly celebrated their return. His thoughts shifted away from the ocean and toward the other storms he had weathered throughout his life. The loss of loved ones, years of deep loneliness, mistakes he wished he could undo. This diagram maps out that dynamic. To survive, you must separate 2 zones: the unpredictable chaos of the outside world and the deliberate response generated from within. When faith anchors that response, the center remains entirely intact, no matter how external circumstances fluctuate. There is no promise that life will be free from tragedy. The winds will blow regardless of how well you prepare. By shifting the locus of control inward, faith provides a stable center that allows a person to determine their internal state, while the external environment falls into chaos. The next morning at sunrise, Eli was back at the docks, methodically repairing his nets to go out on the very water that had nearly killed him. Samuel met him at the edge of the pier. His simple question, "Are you ready?" served to see if the previous night's realization would actually influence their behavior in the morning light. Eli looked out at the water and agreed. He wasn't stepping onto the deck because he expected calm seas forever, but because his resilience was now battle-tested. He finally knew exactly what to do when the water turned rough. We cannot avoid the unpredictable turbulence of life, but we can cultivate the internal fortitude to hold the line, patch the sails, and keep steering the ship until the storm finally passes.